Hello, there we go. Hello and welcome to a new apartment edition of Blind Eye Live for Friday, April 23rd in the year of our Lord 2021. I am your host, Hunter King, Blind Eye himself, owner, proprietor, and on-screen talent. And, well, only employee of Blind Eye Media, a small internet media firm. And apparently in moving my setup and everything, apparently my headset somehow got lost as the main audio source for the stream. So anyway, that one hurt a little. Anyway, for you today, starting a little bit early, I'm going to try, I keep saying I'm going to try and run the show a little quick. Got some stuff to do later this afternoon, so I figured we'd get into things as quickly as possible. I'm repping my Pray, Hustle, Repeat shirt from Grace Point Church. Nice little church in Portland, Texas that I used to volunteer at. Great people there. Pastor John Warren, youth pastor Philip Whitfield, a bunch of other guys. My bestie, Tori Alexander. But yeah, so on the docket today, we're going to go through some NFL, NBA news, mostly NFL stuff today. I've actually got all this stuff lined out. We're going to talk about Steph Curry. We're going to start with Steph Curry. I just want to pull up the shot chart that Kurt Goldsberry put together. Steph is just, it just goes to show how on fire Steph is this year and what he's doing right now. As far as I'm concerned at this point, it is a two-man race for MVP, and it's Jokic and Curry. Also on the docket today, I've also got another article pulled up that we'll probably get into at the end of the show. Matt Bowen, former NFL safety and ESPN analyst and writer, Bowen has put out his the 50 best list or something like that. Basically, he's got 50 categories, and he's rating the best player in the draft at each of these different categories, which range everything from like quarterback play to offensive playmaking, blocking, and different skills for defenders at, all the positions. So that should actually be interesting, informative. Matt Bowen, really informative and insightful guy. I really enjoy the articles that he puts together and puts out. They're very good reads. So we'll probably run through that and see if I agree with, or maybe guys that I like better, maybe in certain areas. So we'll get into that. That'll probably be at the end of the show. So let's jump into... So let's just jump into this shot chart. Oh, I'm in the way. Oh, nope. Let me... That's not what I'm trying to move anyway. Here I am trying to do some stream work here. There we go. Let's put me over in this corner. Yeah. Okay. That's better. And that's better for running this site anyway. Okay. So this is Steph Curry's shot chart for this season, which is just ridiculous. Kurt Goldsberry with the best shot charts in the game. Don't at me. So Curry is just on fire. You see that little sliver of blue in the corner? That corner over there, he tends to take his toughest shots. And I'd say that that's a little fluky. You could see that he has more attempts from basically everywhere else. So 46% from the corner, or from the I guess the left corner. If you're actually at the top of the arc looking in the basket, it's the right corner, whatever. Right wing 49%, 38%, 47%. These are ridiculous percentages here. 51 and 44% on his pull-up mid-rangers that he's got kind of spread out. So if we're saying he's taking probably similar amounts of shots from here and here, let's just meet in the middle and say he's at like 47.5%. Actually looks like he takes more from this side slightly. So maybe let's give him a 48% round up on mid-rangers. And then 63% of the basket. Curry's not like he's not like some hyper athlete or above the rim finisher. And a lot of his layups and stuff, they're scooping, or like their scoop shots are floaters. Like he's lofting this ball up to drop back down typically. And he's got one of the best and most diverse floater games and scoop shot games I've ever seen. 63% around the basket is good for just about anyone, let alone a 6'3", below the rim player. Not that Curry can't dunk, but he's a below the rim finisher for the most part. I mean, I'm not going to get into Kurt Goldsberry's article, which probably really good, really insightful. Although maybe I will something up at the top, but Curry's just scorched earth right now. Let's see. I want to say he had, so here's some little interesting facts right now. This season, Curry has recorded 6 games with at least 10 three-pointers. More than the rest of the NBA combined, 5. That's also more than the next closest NBA player all time has career 10 three-pointer games. Like Klay Thompson is second in NBA history, and when I talked about this earlier this week, Klay has 5 career 10 three-pointer games. Curry has 6 this season, 21 for his entire career. 4 of Curry's games with 10-plus three-pointers have come since April 12th. So that's 4 in the last 2 weeks, less than 2 weeks. I mean, Steph's on a different level. Steph is on a completely different level, and I just realized I'm not on camera. I'm still kind of getting used to how I have the new setup. So, bear with me. I need to check this. Uno momento. All right. Sorry, that was someone I've been trying to get in contact with. So, Anyway, let's move on to some of our news stuff. Well, I guess I had this one lined up first. So, our first NFL news story of the day: Pittsburgh Steelers cornerback Justin Lane arrested, facing felony gun charge. So Lane was arrested on suspicion of felony transportation of a firearm inside of a vehicle, according to jail records in Lake County, Ohio, which is just northeast of Cleveland, where he went to high school, I think it was. Also charged with 2 misdemeanors, driving with a suspended license, and exceeding speed limits. Which means he was speeding, or, speeding on a suspended license, which at this point, you're making hundreds of thousands of dollars a year minimum. Like he was a 3rd-round pick in 2019, so he might be up over $1 million for this season or so. I'd have to look at his contract, but this guy's got money. He has an agent. He has people who can handle this. Like, he should be able to handle getting his license. Well, it depends. Why was his license suspended in the first place? It might be suspended for a specific period of time. So the gun charge wouldn't happen if he wasn't driving or over the speed limit, and likely probably a little recklessly, and on a suspended license. Police said they initially stopped Lane for going 89 and a 60. Okay, so you're going 29 miles an hour over the speed limit. Now, depending on where you are, typically that's a reckless driving charge, not just exceeding the speed limit. Pittsburgh drafted Lane in the 3rd round of the 2019 draft. Yep, I was right. The 23-year-old appeared in 16 games last season, 22 total tackles. Less than 20 miles northeast of Cleveland, where he went to high school. Yeah. Lane was granted release on a personal bond. His next court date should be, or is scheduled for May 5th. I mean, just a young, dumb guy being young and dumb. I mean, that's just irresponsible. And that's going to hurt his chances because he's up for, a bigger role in the defense this year, considering Steven Nelson is gone and they let Mike Hilton walk. So this is the big news. The Cleveland Browns have exercised Baker Mayfield's 5th-year option. Well, I say big news. This is not a shocker. But they picked up his 5th-year option. It's worth $18.86 million. And if he plays like he did last year, or what I would assume improves this year and next year, he's going to be playing. I mean, he's playing at a below-market rate. Last season, Mayfield quarterbacked the Browns to their first playoff victory in 26 years. The 48-37 win over the Steelers, Mayfield passed for 263 yards and 3 touchdowns as the Browns snapped a 17-game losing streak in Pittsburgh during their first playoff appearance since 2002. If I'm not mistaken, in that playoff appearance in 2002, Kelly Holcomb was their starting quarterback, and I believe they lost to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Which that also snapped last season snapped a 18-season playoff drought. Or 19, if that 2002 playoff appearance was for the 2001 season. Whatever. Mayfield finished last season ranked 10th in the league in QBR with 26 TDs and only 8 interceptions. From week 7 to week 15, he was actually third in QBR, trailing only last season's MVP, Aaron Rodgers, and 2019 MVP, Patrick Mahomes. And that's true. It took him a few weeks. It took the Browns a few weeks to get rolling with their new offense and everything. Because, I mean, they didn't look great at the beginning of the year. And they got a mud hole stomped into them. If I'm remembering correctly, like, Tennessee stomped a mud hole in them. Stomped a mud hole in them. Just, the Titans were, brutalized them, if I'm remembering correctly. Unless that was the start of or early in the 2019 season. I think that was last year. But he really did come on down the stretch. Coming off a season in which he broke the NFL rookie record with 27 touchdown passes, Mayfield struggled at times in 2019 because they turned over the team to a guy who didn't know how to instill discipline in Freddie Kitchens, and who for whatever reason decided everything that worked when I was interim offensive coordinator in 2018, I'm just not going to do in 2019. As the Browns finished a disappointing 6-10, but playing for a fourth head coach in his third season, Mayfield thrived under first-time head coach Kevin Stefanski last year. Yeah, because Kevin Stefanski runs a really solid offense. He comes from that Gary Kubiak, Mike Shanahan tree, a lot of play action. And Baker is really good off of play action. Although most quarterbacks are more effective off of play action, Baker's really good off play action. When you have running backs like Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt, play action is even more effective. And when you have a really good offensive line, which they have one of the best in the league last year. So, and if Odell Beckham Jr. can stay healthy this year, that offense should be electric. Let's see. The Carolina Panthers are open to moving back from the number 8 spot in the NFL draft. Hey, moving back and getting more picks is always a good idea. They have plenty of needs. Let's see. General Manager Scott Fitterer, which he's from the John Schneider tree. Comes from the Seattle. Yep. He has 16 players with first-round grades. What? He only has 16 first-round guys? I guess it depends on what you mean by first round, but I don't know. I think there's a lot of great players in this draft, but, The Panthers are open to moving back, but only so far, which makes sense. Oh, yeah. So I guess I'm kind of blowing through news stories right now, but former Kentucky Wildcats guard Terrence Clark, 19, dies following car accident. That is a really nice headline because I have read through this already. So Terrence Clark declared for the NBA draft despite having a pretty nondescript season and being ranked number 72 out of, like, say, not that this is the end-all be-all, but Mike Schmitz and Jonathan Givony, their top 100, he's number 72. There's only 60 slots in the NBA draft. And depending on how many international guys, are teams that use, like, stash picks on European guys who aren't going to come over immediately. So Clark has a really uphill battle. So he died in Los Angeles on Thursday in a car crash. So LAPD, Sergeant John Matassa told Ramona Shelburne that he was the only occupant in a vehicle that ran a red light, going at a very high rate of speed in the San Fernando Valley area of Los Angeles at approximately 2:10 p.m. Pacific. The incident was caught on surveillance video. He collided with another vehicle that was preparing to make a left-hand turn. He struck the vehicle, then hit a street light pole, and ultimately hit a brick wall. He was then transported to Northridge Hospital, where he eventually passed away. Luckily, the driver of the other vehicle that was, driving responsibly, and that vehicle was a truck, did not claim any injuries, so not severely hurt, luckily. Clark was driving a 2021 Hyundai Genesis, which I'm assuming was provided by his agency or something because, well, I don't know how a 19-year-old guy who just finished his freshman year of college could afford a brand new Hyundai Genesis. And he was not wearing his seatbelt properly. So, of course, and I don't want to belittle this. A lot of people hurt. Obviously, his mother. It goes on further in the article. A bunch of former Kentucky players and other people or other, athletes who've been around him. Obviously devastated. However, let's not gloss over the fact that this was a irresponsible person and an adult. You can say they're 19, whatever. They're an adult. They're old enough to know better. I don't know what everyone else does in driver's ed, but when I was 15 years old, 16 years old, in driver's ed, yeah, I knew not to speed because it said very high rate of speed, meaning he was over the speed limit. He ran a red light and blew through a red light, meaning he probably wasn't paying attention, probably distracted with his phone or something else. And he died. And luckily, no one else got killed with him. So, I know that sounds harsh, but I'm probably going to be a little harsh on this platform when it comes to this stuff. He paid the price, and luckily no one else paid the price for his negligence. It sucks the guy's dead, but I'm in situations like this just with Justin Lane, driving 29 miles an hour over the speed limit. Thank goodness nothing bad happened because of that. No one got hurt. Not that driving at 89 miles an hour is necessarily means that you're out of control or a bad driver or whatever, but it's in relation to everyone else and what other people are expecting. Because obviously, if you're going 90 miles an hour and everyone else is going 60, you're covering 33% more ground than everyone else around you. So you're making a turn because it's like speed limit 60, everyone else is going 60. Now, this happened early in the morning, so there might not have been too many people around Lane. But, even at that, depending on how big a metropolitan area you're in or whatever, if you're driving based on the flow of traffic of everyone around you, you know about how fast people are coming up at certain speeds, like how much space you need. So in a normal circumstance, you've got plenty of time. If someone's going 90 instead of 60, they're going to get up on you way faster, and you might end up getting fishtailed or hit. Just different stuff. So, anyway, it is tragic that there was a loss of life of such a young guy chasing his dream, but at the end of the day, it was because of no one's fault other than his own. So that's basically all the news I've got. And I mean, well, I'm moving really fast right now. Let's pull up ESPN and see if any new headlines have hit before I get into that. Let's see. Oh, something new. College Football Playoff Committee considered up to 10-team playoff. Huh. Let's see. Bears legend McMichael reveals ALS diagnosis. Oh, that's terrible. Arsenal fans protest, want owner Kroenke out. So yeah, so all of the English team, soccer teams who are owned by Americans are getting protested because the English are racist against Americans or whatever. I mean, that's really what's coming out of all this, and this is what I've heard, is just a lot of people just being absolutely hateful towards Americans because of this. This obviously is fallout from the European Soccer League, but they're blaming it on the fact that the owners are American for a lot of those clubs, although that's not all of them, because Chelsea is owned by a Russian oil oligarch. And I believe Tottenham is actually, I think Tottenham might be owned by an Englishman, but I need to look into that one. Also, Olympic champion Simone Biles is leaving Nike for Athleta? What is that? That's a huge blow to Nike. Simone Biles is leaving Nike to join Athleta, who will help sponsor a post-Olympics tour that she's organizing herself rather than the one that's usually run by USA Gymnastics. That's interesting. It will allow her to participate in honest conversations with women and girls, and felt Athleta was a better avenue to continue to drive home the message of causes she believes in, which is interesting because Nike is the wokest of all the apparel companies, so that's interesting. So I guess we'll get into Matt Bowen's article on the NFL Draft's best at everything. So let's see what Bowen has to say here. So he's going to start with a quarterback. So let me reorient, because turning like that's not the best feeling. So, QB with the best arm talent, Trevor Lawrence of Clemson. I don't know if I totally agree with that. Let's see. Along with his high-end processing and movement ability, Lawrence has the most arm talent of all the quarterbacks. He can also vary ball speeds, making layered throws with touch and pace. Lawrence does have a lot of arm talent, sure, but it's hard to say best arm talent because Fields has an incredible arm. Wilson has an incredible arm, and out of all the pro days, he had one of his throws was easily the highest degree of difficulty throw I think I've seen at a pro day period, like between degree of difficulty and then execution. Basically this rolling left as a righty, fade away, deep shot that hits the receiver perfectly in stride. I want to say it was like the ball had to have traveled 50 yards, 40, 50 yards. And it was just and it's one you've got to see. But I don't know who really has the most arm talent. If you're saying just pure arm strength, biggest arm, maybe it's Lawrence, but it's hard because Fields and Trey Lance has a crazy arm. But if you're going to just put all the pieces together, maybe Lawrence. And maybe this has to do with his receiving talent last year. Out of all of the top 5 quarterbacks, excluding Lance because he only played one game. But between Fields, Wilson, Jones, and Lawrence, he was the least accurate on throws down the field, like deep downfield. And he was just less accurate at all levels compared to Mac Jones anyway. And I believe as well as Zach Wilson. Now, Zach Wilson, lower level of competition, but also lower level of talent around him. So, best second reaction quarterback, Zach Wilson. That I agree with. If you're talking about, let's see. I want to make sure I know exactly what he means by second. Okay. The BYU star can escape and extend, which allows him to use that natural whip in his arm on off-platform throws. And that's the thing about arm talent. This ability to play off-platform naturally is one of my arguments why Zach Wilson might have the most arm talent. Like his ability to throw the ball using different arm angles is, out of all of these quarterbacks, the best. And I think that's part of arm talent, for me at least. Among QBs with at least 50 attempts outside the pocket in 2020, only Spencer Rattler of Oklahoma bettered Wilson's 9.43 yards per attempt in those attempts, which I think Spencer Rattler is going to have a special year this next year. He really came on as the season progressed last year. Don't sleep on his future prospects. But I'd agree with that because there'd be a lot of people who will throw Justin Fields in here, and I disagree. Fields is great at taking off and running, but when it comes to extending plays, he is nowhere near as adept at extending and then throwing the ball as Zach Wilson. Fields is really great in the pocket, and he's a really good passer, but he has a tendency to lock in on kind of like his first read or like his first concept. And really when that play's not there or he gets under pressure, he just runs, which is extremely effective. But Zach Wilson has a lot of Patrick Mahomes in his game. That's all I'm saying. Like, I compare Trevor Lawrence a lot to Andrew Luck. I think Wilson there's a lot that I see that reminds me of Patrick Mahomes and Tony Romo at his best. And I think Tony Romo doesn't get enough credit, to be honest. Whereas Fields reminds me of a more developed or a somewhat more developed Michael Vick or Lamar Jackson. Quarterback with the best physical traits, tools, Justin Fields. I think I would agree with that. It's him or Trey Lance in this class. Mac Jones is easily the most accurate QB. He broke Joe Burrow's record for the best single season completion percentage last season. While Jones might lack upper tier traits at the position in terms of moving outside the pocket and arm strength, he completes 77.4% of his passes. I mean, that's ridiculous. Ridiculous. His ball placement all over the field is incredible. Off target on just 5.9% of his passes in 2020. That's ridiculously good. That's ridiculously low. Now, best decision-making QB, he's saying Trey Lance. That's because Trey Lance, in his, let's just take all his starts. Let's use the Central Arkansas game from last fall as well. He threw 1 interception. He didn't throw any in 2019. He threw 1 in that Central Arkansas game. He threw 28 touchdowns with 0 interceptions in 2019. He also ran for another, I think it was 11 scores. He's an incredible athlete. 6.8 yards per design run in 2019. Would have ranked 5th among FBS quarterbacks that year. I mean, Lance doesn't throw interceptions, but I would still say that Mac Jones is a better decision maker at quarterback. But it's close. Most anticipatory QB, Davis Mills. I disagree with that. I think he's trying to get something in for Davis Mills because there's a lot of people who see Mills as very toolsy. He's now a day 2 pick. Some people have had him at the end of the first round. He does have great size. He does have really good arm talent. I guess his footwork's good. I don't know. That didn't necessarily wow me. Not like Matt Jones's footwork. Former 5-star recruit. Mills can deliver the ball with anticipation on second and third level routes. I mean, sure, but I would say Jones and Lawrence and Wilson throw with more anticipation. Or maybe Lawrence a little bit of a stretch. He has it, but it's not as consistent because that's not always the way. Or Clemson's offense isn't built as much around it as, say, BYU and Alabama's offense was. So best route running receiver, that's easy. Devontae Smith, best route runner to come out of college and maybe ever. I mean, I know that's a big statement, but Devontae Smith, at least in recent memory, is the best. If we're going to go after Devontae Smith, who the best route runner is, if Kadarius Toney, like, not necessarily as in the traditional sense, but in terms of creating separation underneath, Kadarius Toney's ridiculous. Elijah Moore is a great tactician and technician running routes. And Rashad Bateman is a really great route runner in terms of using his body, which, of course, everybody was expecting Bateman to be like 6'2", 6'3", 210 and running like the mid 4.5s. It turns out he's actually like 6'1", 190, and he runs a 4.4 flat. Bateman's very interesting. Best wide receiver after the catch, Jamar Chase. I mean, he is really fast, and he's physical, and he also has some wiggle. I don't know if I agree with that. Because personally, I would say Jalen Waddle's the best receiver after the catch. But he doesn't have the power Chase does. He's a bit faster, arguably the fastest player in the draft. And he has incredible acceleration and agility. But he doesn't have Chase's strength. And I'd also argue Rondelle Moore. But there are so many dangerous guys after the catch. Kadarius Toney forced 21 missed tackles last year. Elijah Moore's dangerous after the catch. Jalen Darden is incredibly dangerous after the catch. I think over the last 2 seasons, he has the most forced missed tackles or something like that. Anthony Schwartz, but his is more pure speed and acceleration based. Best playmaking wide receiver, Jalen Waddle. See, I might flip this. And you could argue most dangerous after the catch and best playmaking, arguably the same thing. So, but that depends on how you label it. Waddle's also the best return man in this draft, although Darden is really dangerous. Toney's a good punt returner. Most sudden receiver, and this I agree with, and this is what makes Toney so crazy, is he has this twitchy suddenness in short area that and that's why seems like he's always so open on tape. The best slot receiver, Elijah Moore. I'd say he's probably more well-rounded than Toney. He's a little bit faster, and I think he's more effective outside than Toney is. In the slot, I think Moore's more effective downfield than Toney. He's smaller than Toney, but he's shown more ability on contested catches. And I'd say he's a more pure all-around receiver than Toney. It's hard to have a best slot receiver because there's so many good slot receivers. I disagree with Nico Collins being the best red zone receiver. If I were going to say that, one, it'd be Kyle Pitts, because I consider him a receiver as well as a tight end. Best red zone target would be Pitts. And Collins is close. I mean, he has great measurables, but I prefer Terrace Marshall or Rashad Bateman, personally. Most dynamic receiver, I'd agree with that when it comes to Rondelle Moore. He's, in terms of all-around athleticism, he is the shortest out of, I think, all the receivers in the class. But he is extremely explosive. Vertically, laterally, 42.5 vertical, 42.5-inch vertical. He had an over 11-foot broad jump, 4.29 40. He's 5'7", but he plays at 185, 190. His freshman year, he had 1,471 yards from scrimmage as a true freshman. Dude's ridiculous. And he was squatting 600 pounds as a true freshman at 180. Fastest deep ball receiver, Anthony Schwartz. And that's possible. It's him or Waddle. Schwartz ran, I think, a 4.2, 640. But Waddle was the fastest receiver, the fastest player in college football last year, according to GPS tracking data before his injury. So it's really close. And Waddle has way better receiver skills. So I think that should be kept in mind in that regard. But Schwartz was a legit top track guy in high school and college as well. Most versatile receiver, Rashad Bateman. That I agree with. That guy can do everything. He literally can do anything. Inside, outside. I mean, you could also argue that Jamar Chase is the most versatile receiver, but he's trying to give different guys different shine. Bateman is kind of like Keenan Allen, but faster. Imagine if Keenan Allen had 4.4 flat speed. And Bateman's better down the field than Allen. I don't think he's not quite as thick. I like the comps here with Allen Robinson and Michael Thomas. I think those are good comps, for sure. He's not as big as Robinson or Thomas, or as thick as Thomas, but plays pretty much exactly the same way. And he's faster than both. Best receiver in the RPO game, Dwayne Eskridge, Western Michigan. Maybe. I'd argue that Rondelle Moore, Elijah Moore, the Bama receivers, all of those guys are really good in the RPO game. This is a class full of guys who are good in that. He's just wanting to get Eskridge in there, and I get that. Best north-south juice at running back, Travis Etienne. I guess if you're talking about one cut and then turning on the speed, sure. Best change of direction ability is actually Najee. And this is true, despite the fact that Harris has over 20 pounds, or like 20 pounds on ETN, and 3 or 4 inches. Najee actually is extremely shifty, which one of his issues before the last couple seasons, and really this year, was he went east-west too often and didn't get north-south enough with his 230-plus pound frame. But he does have incredible change of direction ability for a guy who's over 230. He's kind of like a more physically dominant kind of Le'Veon Bell, because Le'Veon Bell was played at a bigger weight in college, I think, than he did in the pros. But he has great change of direction. But I would argue that the actual guy with the best change of direction ability overall is probably Jalen Hawkins out of Louisville. He's a much smaller back, though. Best contact balance, Trey Sermon. I mean, yeah. The other guy I would go with in that regard, though, maybe, would be Jarrett Patterson out of Buffalo, because he's so small. But man, does he keep his feet underneath him and legs moving. Top power running back, Javonte Williams. That I disagree with. I think he does have really good power, but he's not as big as you would think. He came in at like 214, 215. I'd say Harris is more powerful, and I'd say Trey Sermon is is also more powerful. Best pass catching running back, Gainwell, sure. But I don't know. Najee and Etienne are both right there. Best pass catching tight end, obviously that's Kyle Pitts. That's not even a best blocking tight end, Tommy Tremble of Notre Dame. I'd agree with that assessment. If we're doing the non-Kyle Pitts division, though, the best pass-catching tight end is probably Hunter Long. If not him, it's Charlie Kohler. Some people would say Pat Freiermuth, but I think he's just super well-rounded, as is Hunter Long. Best run-blocking offense. Sewell, maybe. If I'm just going pure run-blocking lineman, though, I'm gonna say the best run-blocking offensive tackle is Tevin Jenkins out of Oklahoma State. And if we're talking and if we're going interior, because I'm gonna divide the two. It also depends on like what scheme you're looking for. But Quinn Miners, dude, he's going to be nasty. Let's see. Pass blocking offensive moment. Darisaw, I can absolutely see that. Because I think he's actually the best pure pass blocking offensive tackle prospect. If we're just going off of pass protection, he's the top guy. I think I'd agree with that. Most versatile is definitely Rashawn Slater. That guy, I think, can play all 5 positions on the line. Best balance, Elijah Vera Tucker. I'd roll with that. I'd almost give this one to Jenkins too, and if there's a most versatile runner-up to Slater or a guy who can challenge him, it's Vera Tucker. Best finisher, and this I definitely agree with. Jenkins is my favorite offensive lineman in this draft. It's him and Slater are my two favorites. And Jenkins is just nasty. This I agree with. Phillips is the best overall edge rusher in the draft, hands down. Best interior, that's not even close either. It's definitely Barmore. He's the only interior guy I think that has a shot at the first round. I don't think on Onwuzurike, as much as I like his potential, he didn't have the greatest postseason showing during the draft process. I think he's probably locked into the second round. And here he is. Okay, so Aleem McNeil, defensive tackle, NC State, is best run stopper. That's an interesting take. It also depends on what you mean by run stopping. Are you talking about a guy who just eats up blocks? Or are you talking about a guy who beats blocks and really destroys run plays? Because I tell you, Bohanna out of Kentucky at 364 and Tyler Shelvin out of LSU, who plays at somewhere between 330 and 340. And Shelvin's got athleticism at that size. Those guys are day wreckers in that regard in the run game. Best 3-4 edge defender, Azeez Ojulari, which he actually did play in a 3-4 scheme at Georgia. But I would say Joseph Asai is the best all-around potential 3-4 edge guy. Or if you were going to play Zaven Collins that way, I think those two guys are right there with Ojulari. Most explosive is that's not true. I mean, I get it, but the biggest physical freak at the position with the most explosiveness is very much Jason Owe out of Penn State. Highest upside D lineman, Peyton Turner out of Houston. 6'5", 270, 35-inch arms. Turner is a really, really he does have a lot of upside, but once again, I think if you're going highest upside, it once again would probably have to be Jason Owe because of his physical tools. No one has those physical tools. Other than Montez Sweat. Those two guys. Most rangy linebacker, Micah Parsons. That makes sense because of his speed. Best playmaking linebacker, Jamin Davis. And I would argue, these two, in terms of range, you've also got Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah. Best linebacker, run defender, Nick Bolton. I don't know if I agree with that one. I'm not sure I agree with that one. But most versatile, Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah. I mean, Koramoah, Davis, and Parsons all, which Koramoah is smaller than Davis and Parsons, but these are all very fast, very agile, playmaking linebackers. I mean, Owusu-Koramoah basically flipped between being a strong side backer and a slot corner, depending on how, the offense was aligned. If I was going to go with the best run defending linebacker, though, I might argue for Bolton's good, but I might argue for Davis or Caleb McGrone. But most disruptive linebacker, Zaven Collins, and he's another really great run defender too. And if you're talking about just linebacker in general, I would also say Osai is arguably another really versatile edge, but also off-ball linebacker. Should I say, I think he's a 3-4 outside linebacker. If we're talking about best run defender, it's Osai. 20 tackles for loss last year. Collins, though, extremely disruptive. And this guy, once again, he can play 4-3 linebacker. He can play 3-4 outside linebacker. Collins can cover. He can rush the passer. Linebacker with best coverage skills. I don't actually know if I agree with that with Cox. I would say Koromoa easily has the best coverage skills. And I would argue that Monty Rice is as good or better than Cox. But Cox is really good in coverage. Jamin Davis is really good in coverage as well, as is David Collins. So I don't think he put enough into the front 7 players, to be honest, here. Or like the DNs and tackles. But best man coverage corner, Patrick Surtain. Okay. Best zone coverage, Newsome. Okay. Best ball hawking DB, Cisco. I disagree with that. Yes, he racked up 13 interceptions at Syracuse, but if I'm talking about ball hawking, I kind of think Richie Grant, which here he goes, best run defending DB is Richie Grant. See, I think he's got elite range at free safety. Best coverage safety, Morig. See, to me, the best run defending DB. I don't know. Which Matt Bowen, I would say this. He was a DB, and particularly he was a safety. So maybe it's like I might ought to defer to him on these. But this is kind of interesting. Because I would say Morig is the best overall safety. You know, he has all the skills. Best slot corner, Asante Samuel Jr. That I agree with. Most competitive DB, J.C. Horn, who is my favorite. I would argue, when healthy, Caleb Farley is probably actually the best man coverage corner when it comes to stickiness. If we're talking zone, I think Surtain, though, is just great at everything. This, and I'm glad to see this. So he has him as the most versatile. I would just say the smartest and trickiest defensive back is Jamar Johnson, the safety out of Utah. Indiana. I don't know why I said Utah. I guess I saw that U. But yeah, Indiana. This is one of my favorite players in the draft. This guy can do everything. And best nickel safety, Javon Holland. Sure. Johnson is really good. Let's see. DB with the best play speed, Elijah Molden of Washington. He just found a way to include Molden in his list. And I guess he's got some sleeper guys. Jordan Smith, DN to UAB. Okay, I see that. I know a couple guys who really, really like him because of his length. 6'6", 255. Like, he's a traitsy kind of guy. He's a projectable guy. DeMar Hamlin said he had a Pittsburgh. Hamlin, okay. Okay, here's another one of my day 3 receivers that I really, really like. And I haven't talked about him a lot because I haven't really done a whole lot of deep dives into 4th to 7th round. So, Emir Smith Marset. This guy at Iowa did not get talked about enough. He is super quick. He's a dangerous return man. He's a top end playmaker with the ball in his hands. And I love him as a potential slot receiver. like as a complimentary receiver in the NFL, I think Smith Marset is. I think he could be absolutely legit. So since he put some sleepers, these are some of my sleeper guys I've talked about a lot. Cade Johnson, wide receiver out of South Dakota State. I really, really like his tape. He's not going to overwhelm you with speed or anything, or even necessarily like his suddenness. But if we're talking guys who just they time their routes, they anticipate, they create enough separation. Cade Johnson has solid hands, and he will get open enough for NFL quarterbacks. Like, as a complimentary receiver, I really like Cade Johnson and his future potential. Emir Smith Marset would be a guy I would mention here. This receiver class is so deep that another guy, Tyler Vaughns, he's continually been overshadowed by other receivers at USC, like Amon-Ra St. Brown. A lot of people are really high on. It seems like there's a lot of mix on him. That a lot of people call him a technician who he's really, really great at playing the position. Maybe isn't like an elite athlete or have like some crazy elite frame, but he's a solid receiver. And that I can agree with, but his pedigree was something way more than that. And I wonder if, as a prospect, maybe because of that, he's getting a little more credit than maybe he should. I don't know. There are people who love him. There are people who think he's clearly overrated. People either think he's underrated or overrated. No one thinks there's no real in between on Amon-Ra St. Brown. Whereas his teammate Tyler Vaughns, he's longer, he's more explosive, and this guy just made some ridiculous catches. I was watching highlights of like the USC offenses from 2018 to 2019. And as great as Pittman was, I'm trying to remember if they had a guy drafted in 2019, because I know Pittman went in 2020. I'm trying to remember who USC might have gotten drafted in 2019, potentially. Anyway, Vaughn, despite not getting the billing of Pittman and Amon-Ra St. Brown, and another one of his teammates, Vaughn's just made ridiculous catches, big plays in clutch moments, although all those guys, it seemed like, did at different points. I just think Vaughn's has really, really great ability. And he's going to go on day 3. I think probably round 5. And Vaughn's is as talented as any of the receivers who I don't have as a lock to go in the first 2 rounds. I mean, there's so many freaking great receivers in this draft. And people are going to be getting really good receivers or really far down boards. Like, last year's receiver class was great, and it was really great at the top, but it didn't even have the depth of this class. And Tyler Johnson last year went in the 5th round, who was one of my favorite receivers. I had a 2nd round grade on him, went in the 5th round. I couldn't believe it. Out of the group of Rashad Bateman, Terrace Marshall, Elijah Moore, Rondelle Moore, and Mel Kiper, I was listening to the First Draft podcast from this week. He was talking about Dimey Brown in North Carolina potentially. He said, this guy's probably a first-round prospect most years. And he probably won't see his name called till like maybe the second half of round 2. Something like that. there's just so much talent in this draft class, or at that position, that a lot of your sleepers are at that position because of it. Some sleeper corners. Well, I think everybody's sleeping on Jamar Johnson because I'm seeing him pretty much as like a fourth, fifth. Some people I think have a third round grade on him. I think he'll probably go third, fourth round. I love him. I love everything about his tape. That guy it will fit in the NFL. I don't know if Jamar Johnson will necessarily be a star. He has the head on his shoulders to be a great pro, though, and to be a really good quality player and versatile chess piece for NFL defensive coordinators. So I think people are sleeping on him. Obviously, Matt Bowen's not. I think Monty Rice is being slept on at linebacker out of Georgia. He is really athletic. And while I was really high on Jabril Cox coming into the year, I still think he's a really good prospect. But I think I like Rice better than Nick Bolton. And there are people who have Nick Bolton as like a late first, second round guy. I would take Rice over him. I think he has far more coverage upside, which is more and more important these days. I think he's more athletic. And I actually think he reads the field better than Bolton. So I think out of the top linebackers, and most people have Nick Bolton kind of behind, well, definitely behind Parsons, Joker, Owusu-Koramoah, but a lot of people call him Joker because J-O-K. Jamin Davis, Zaven Collins are ahead of Bolton. Some people have him kind of close to Collins. I don't. And like I said, I like Rice better than him. And I honestly like Jabril Cox better than him. So, with that being said, and then on the offensive line, there's a lot of great defense or great offensive line talent in this draft, all over. I would say that now there are some people giving him the love he deserves because I think he should be in the second round conversation, but some people have him like ranked really low for whatever reason. Ben Cleveland out of Georgia is just a beast at guard. I don't have him rated ahead of Trey Smith necessarily because Trey Smith does have better physical tools, but Cleveland just model of consistency and great play at Georgia. Quinn Miners, of course, is great, but I wouldn't necessarily say he's a sleeper at this point. Everybody's talking about him. I think Brady Christensen at BYU, although he's not even really a sleeper anymore at offensive tackle. So many linemen are getting huge press in this draft. So, although I would say at this point, Alex Leatherwood maybe is getting a little slept on, which most people just kind of want to see him move into guard. They don't think he's going to hold up at tackle at the NFL level, and that's fine because I think he will be a great guard. But I think he could. I'd say he's probably better than Cam Robinson. So, although basically you're saying, oh, he's better than arguably one of the worst starting left tackles in the league. So, and not that Cam Robinson is terrible, it's just when it comes to starting level players, I mean, you've got to put up. And he's coming off arguably his worst season as a pro this year, and that's not good. Considering, this was year 4 for you. So, and a couple other sleepers. Louisiana Lafayette has a couple guys. The Mitchells, one's a running back. He's a little undersized, but he's got 4.4 4.1 speed or 4.4 flat speed. Just really quick. Played really, really well at Louisiana Lafayette. I think he's a solid complementary back at the NFL level. And then his teammate who plays nose tackle at like 6'1", 340 pounds. One of my favorite nose tackles in the draft. And I've said in the past, nose tackle is one of my... It's kind of like that guilty pleasure position. I love big old nose tackles that they eat blocks. Because if you single block them, they are going to drive that guy into next week. You have to double team them, or it can blow up your entire blocking scheme. Like a great nose tackle, your Damon Harrison, your Brandon Williams. When he was putting out the effort at Tennessee, like Albert Haynesworth was like the peak kind of version of that because he was big as a nose tackle, but he was also super athletic and disruptive as a penetrator. John Henderson kind of in that mold too, but they were still taller, longer guys. Like I love kind of guys maybe a little bit short and they're real thick and hard to move. Like I love those guys. And so Mitchell Bohanna out of Kentucky, and then Tyler Shelvin of LSU. Those are my three favorites out of that position type. But there's a lot of good ones. I can't remember the name of the guy from Florida, but he's playing at over 340 as well. There's a nose tackle from Georgia because it seems like there's one every couple years, like just a big nose tackle out of Georgia. So, yeah. With that being said, I think I'm going to end the show for today. That's really all I got. Still trying to sort things out for a potential draft stream next Thursday. So, hopefully I'll have that planned out by Monday. So, anyway, with that being said, thank you for tuning in today. If you're catching this on the archive, appreciate you too. Please leave a comment. I do read the comments. If you like the show, hit that like button. It really helps the channel. If you want more Blind Eye Live, please hit the subscribe button. Please hit that bell notification next to subscribe and set it to all so you never miss a show and potential future video uploads. And with that, I hope y'all have a great weekend. I will see y'all on Monday.